How you doing, everybody? My name is Nick Prince. This week, for the 12 steps fireside chat, I decided to do mine on a study called The Effects of Cognitive General Imagery Use on Decision Accuracy and Speed in Curling. The study was done by Nicole Westland Stewart and Craig Hall, and both of them are from Western Kentucky. So I'm going to start out with the abstract. The purpose of this study was to examine the effects of a 6-week cognitive imagery intervention on strategic decision making in curling. A secondary purpose was to determine whether curlers' imagery ability and cognitive imagery use would be improved. 11 varsity curlers from a Canadian post-secondary institution engaged in weekly guided imagery sessions that were held at the curling club before their regularly scheduled team practices. Curlers' response times on computerized curling strategy assessment significantly improved from baseline to post-intervention. In addition, their kinesthetic imagery ability, CG imagery use, and MGM imagery use significantly increased. These results suggest that when curlers are exposed to new scenarios, they learn to store, process, and retrieve relevant information quicker. And that's from Simon and Chase, 1973. From a practical standpoint, CG imagery training can improve curlers' strategy performance, including their ability to various strategies in game situations. So one thing that was actually in the start of the article, which was very helpful to me because I'm not familiar with curling, it says right here, curling is often referred to as chess on ice, and that's from Haggerty 2013. It's highly strategic nature often requires players to think 2 or 3 shots ahead at all times. In competition, curlers are allotted 38 minutes of thinking time during a 10 end game, and that's from the Canadian Curling Association 2014. So obviously, curling is not a sport that's extremely popular in the U.S. I think I, like most people, only really watch bits and pieces of it during the Olympics. So that alone was very helpful to me. I still don't know all the rules and stuff like that. I tried looking it up a little bit. But, yeah, that alone, kind of comparing it to chess and how it's a big mental game and you have to plan your shots ahead of time. It's similar to other sports, in my opinion, in that sense. I'm going to start out. Here is the citation for it, if you can see that. Hopefully. If not, I apologize. Yeah, so that's the citation. For the purpose of this, obviously, for the study was to examine the effects of imagery intervention on curling athletes. In the article, the authors explained how curling is highly strategic and it involves quick decision making, so you might have to decide what kind of shot you're going to make 2 or 3 shots before you actually do it. The authors believe that examining effects of the imagery intervention of the curlers would be beneficial for the study. The secondary purpose, it was explained, was to see if curlers' imagery ability would increase after the intervention. So, for fit and specific rationale, I would say this study fits perfectly into what I've been looking at. My research has kind of led me a lot towards imagery and mental skill uses in athletes, and I mean this is pretty spot on for that. So yeah. Participants. The participants in the study were members of a men's and women's varsity curling team from a post-secondary school in Ontario, Canada. In total, there were 11 participants. 5 of them were males and 6 were females. So kind of a small sample size, if you ask me, but I'm not really sure how many are on a curling team, to be honest with you. So, but I just thought that was kind of a small sample size. It's also stated that all 4 positions were represented in the study, so I actually didn't even know there were 4 positions mainly in curling, but that was nice to see. So some context here. Where did the study take place? It took place in Ontario, Canada, and it specifically said it took place at a curling club before their varsity practices each day. So some steps in the sequence, I wrote them down here, and I'll show you a picture of that too. So more specifically, I'll just explain it to you. So they had to get the study approved by the ethics board, which is obviously pretty familiar. I'm sure everybody else has seen that. So after that, they contacted the head coach. They had to obtain access from the coach to talk to the athletes. Once they were able to do that, they explained to the athletes what the study was. Next, the athletes were required to take, I believe it was either 2 or 3 different questionnaires, each one relating to different mental skills. More specifically, the imagery questionnaire, which I've seen in many other studies. Athletes have had to take that. And then after that, the athletes were kind of doing like a pre-study test on their abilities. Next, they had to do the 6-week-long imagery sessions. And then after that, they did their post-intervention evaluation. So in terms of data, data was considered to be all the questionnaire responses from the athletes, as well as the difference between the pre and the post intervention evaluations. Analysis, in forms of analysis, data was analyzed by the researchers by looking at the questionnaires as I explained above, and also examining the changes in their pre and post evaluation. So I mean, it's pretty similar to the last one. They had a lot of people working on it and just examining different questionnaires and how each athlete answered certain things. So results. The author's primary results were how much the athletes' response times changed from before and after the intervention. That's mainly what they were looking for, their main thing. That was one of their goals. They also looked at questionnaires, like I said the last 2 times. Primary results, though, were the response times. So they were mainly looking at, response times before and after. Authors also looked at decision-making accuracy and decision-making speed by the athletes. That was another big thing they focused on. So, how quickly they were able to make decisions and how accurate those decisions ended up being. So, conclusion. The authors concluded that the study showed that the athletes' decision-making accuracy actually did improve after the 6-week intervention. The speed did increase also, and but the one thing that was made clear by the authors was that the accuracy it did improve, but by very little. So I don't even know if in the future they would really focus on that. I think they'd probably focus more on the speed because that was a drastic increase. After that, the authors claim that the study provides support that cognitive general imagery training can in fact improve strategic decision making in curling, and more specifically in response times. So, by the way, when I was saying CG earlier, I apologize. I forgot to mention that CG was cognitive general imagery. So the cautions, there's actually one big caution that stuck out to me that the authors didn't really come out and say, like, this was a caution, but they did have a little piece about it in, like, a whole other piece to the article where they explained it. So basically, they said that there was a little bit of poor adherence to the imagery program from the athletes when it was outside of session with the researcher. So basically, the 11 athletes, they did what they had to do when they were with the researcher and when they were in the classroom, in the club, like working on, different mental skills and stuff like that. But from the post-op and talking to the athletes, they realized that there was kind of a lack of adherence to the program when the athletes were at home or outside of the study. So basically what that means was if they were told to do something outside, like when they got home or before bed or when they wake up, like certain like skills to practice, it was not it was not followed all the time by every athlete. So I think that's it's really big because it affects the study. Who knows? Who's to say that if every athlete did follow that to a T, that both the accuracy and speed would have increased dramatically instead of just the speed. So all in all, I thought that this general study was pretty cool. I actually learned more about curling from it, and I think it goes along with like a lot of other studies that I've looked at. Just preaching the positives of imagery use and mental skills use, and how it can positively affect an athlete and their performance. Decision making, it's a huge part of not just curling, but any sport. Football, when you're thinking of quarterbacks, they're reading the field, and they have to make the decision on who to throw to. A running back has to make a quick split-second decision on where to cut if he's got a guy coming at him and another guy to the right. Basketball, the list could go on. Soccer, every sport has quick decision-making processes where I feel like a study like this could not only show improvements in curling athletes, but a soccer player, a baseball player. So I think this study could really be added on to, and I think it's definitely something to build off of. So that's it. Thank you for watching, and have a good day. Bye.